Hello, listeners, and welcome to the premiere episode of Conversations with Haider Rifaat, where I engage with experts in all fields in a constructive discourse on an array of issues. Today I'm joined by Dr. Rifaat Hussain, who is a leading Pakistani foreign policy expert and a professor of public policy at the National University of Sciences and Technology. Together, we'll be talking about the current climate in Afghanistan following the United States government's decision to withdraw forces in the country, as well as the growing influence of the Afghan Taliban. Thank you so much, Dr. Rifaat Hussain, for joining me. First and foremost, how do you see Afghanistan's future following withdrawal of US armed forces?
Well, the future is in the hands of the Taliban. Not only they have made some decisive gains, military gains, not only they have conquered territory inside Afghanistan, even though most of this territory is not in the urban centers, but the Taliban are the future wave, and there's nothing stopping them. And how would this translate into the Doha peace process? I think it will have tremendous and negative implications because the Taliban seem so confident, they seem to be so ascendant that they are now only waiting for the Americans to complete their withdrawal from Afghanistan, which according to the timetable announced by Joe Biden is going to be September, which is only a matter of few weeks. And after that, it is going to be a straight fight between the Taliban on the one hand and the Ghani government, which is being supported by Washington and the international community.
And what are the prospects of peace between the Afghan government and the Afghan Taliban with the United States out of the picture?
Well, the US decision to withdraw from Afghanistan in a way simplifies the situation because now it's a two-way fight between the Afghan National Security Forces on the one hand and the Taliban on the other. Of course, you have the warlords like Rashid Dostum and son of Ahmad Shah Massoud, the Lion of Panjshir. They are also putting their weight behind the revival of the erstwhile Northern Alliance. So, but I don't think that these groups, armed groups, unless they are given a firm support from the neighboring countries, they will be able to withstand the Taliban's onslaught. And the intra-Afghan dialogue remains in a standstill. The Doha peace process is not going anywhere, and there is a troika plus, which means that Americans and the Chinese and the Russians, along with Pakistan, they are trying their level best to jumpstart the stalled dialogue, inter-Afghan dialogue. But I'm not very hopeful that this inter-Afghan dialogue will lead anytime soon to a peace settlement. So the peace settlement based on the inter-Afghan dialogue making some kind of a headway remains very elusive.
How deteriorated would circumstances have been had the US government not withdrawn its forces from Afghanistan?
Well, that's a hypothetical question because the American forces are going to withdraw. As I mentioned earlier, 90% of the forces have been withdrawn from Afghanistan. But it's an interesting question that had the Americans decided to stay on in Afghanistan for a little while longer, I think the chances for the intra-Afghan dialogue to be a little bit more fruitful would have been much brighter. But then that's a hypothetical question. Now we know that if the Americans had this started this effort to clinch a peace deal between the Taliban by withdrawing their forces, if they would have been given it more time, then the chances would have been much brighter. But now it's a foregone conclusion that the reality on the ground situation, will determine what's going to happen in future. And the momentum of the Afghan war, of the intra-Afghan violence between different armed groups seems to be favoring the Taliban.
Right. And what impact would the possibility of the Afghan military takeover of the Taliban have on South Asia and the international community at large?
Well, the Taliban's ability to conquer Afghanistan, it's only a matter of time. But the Taliban, even if they assume power, which means that they are extend their writ over whole of Afghanistan, and there seems to be a consensus amongst the neighboring countries, including Pakistan, that they will not accept a military takeover of Afghanistan, because this would mean, the return of the Taliban rule, and there are Pakistanis are apprehensive about it, largely because of the security impact that Taliban's victory inside Afghanistan would have on the neighboring provinces of Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and the religious right inside Pakistan would also be duly inspired by Taliban's victory. So, because of these reasons, the Pakistanis are very concerned that in the absence of a deal, peace deal, brokered by the Americans or by some other forces, they will not accept it. And there seems to be, and that viewpoint has a lot of support, has a lot of resonance amongst the regional countries. And the Chinese have also said this, that even though they do not consider Taliban a force to be denied, but they are not willing to support the Taliban's unilateral push for control of Afghanistan. And that seems to be the view which has been articulated more forcefully by the Americans, where the Biden administration has said that a forcible takeover of Afghanistan by the Taliban, they are not going to accept it. They are not going to accord it legitimacy. So it's up to the Taliban whether they would like to defy the international community or the regional consensus in this regard. It's up to them. But the momentum seems to be clearly favoring the Taliban.
And do you feel that Pakistan is being unfairly demonized on its role in Afghanistan? Where do you see the future of these two countries?
Well, the only two countries that have demonized Pakistan for offering sanctuaries to the Taliban, and such wild accusations that they have made against Pakistan are India and Afghanistan, and the Ashraf Ghani government, which is closely aligned in terms of its foreign policy with the Indian government. But the other countries, including the United States, even though United States has expressed concern about sanctuaries being active in Pakistan, but they have not been able to document this or produce evidence that Pakistan offers to continues to offer sanctuaries to the Taliban leadership. Of course, this leadership has lived in Pakistan, including Mullah Brother, who is now the leading negotiator of the Taliban. He has lived in Pakistan. He has been interned by the Pakistan government, but then he was released about 3 or 4 years ago, and Pakistan government has facilitated the Taliban going to the Doha peace process and taking part in it, and Pakistan has used whatever influence it had over the Taliban to bring them to the negotiating table and to the Doha peace talks. And this positive role has been recognized across the board by China, by United States, by Russia, by Turkey, and by other countries. So I don't think that it's fair to say that Pakistan has been demonized for its disruptive role, its alleged disruptive role inside Afghanistan. Of course, people who make this kind of a criticism uh, not only fail to produce evidence of Pakistan supporting the Taliban, but they are people who are making these kind of allegations have their own ideological agenda for which they want to scapegoat for their failure and for their role inside Afghanistan, and they would like to scapegoat Pakistan. But generally, there is a fair amount, there's a very good recognition of Pakistan's positive contribution to act as a facilitator for the Doha peace process.
The Afghan Taliban seized three provincial capitals in Afghanistan. What dangerous precedent do these recent developments set for the Afghan government?
Well, the Taliban's recent victories, and particularly the fall of the three provincial capitals uh, to the Taliban, only indicates that the Taliban are going to continue their march towards the capital, including ultimately they would like to target Kabul, and there is the momentum has shifted overwhelmingly in favor of the Taliban, and it's only a matter of time before they are able to extend their rule over whole of Afghanistan at the expense of the Ashraf Ghani government, and that's a development that's an uncomfortable and unwelcome development from the standpoint of many of the countries, including Pakistan. But that's the reality, and Pakistan, along with the international community, has to get itself prepared to accept the fact that the Taliban are going to be the future wave of Afghanistan, unless the Americans decide to bring in their air force and their airstrikes to prevent the Taliban from engineering that kind of an outcome.
On that note, I would like to thank you, Dr. Rifaat Hussain, for joining me. It was a pleasure talking to you. That is all for now, listeners, but stay tuned for more episodes coming soon, more podcasts, more discussion-based episodes. I'm leaving the links to my social media accounts in the description box. Make sure you check them out. That is all for now. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.